Hello and welcome to this Bitsbox unboxing video. Today we're going to be having a look at the new Halberd Destroyer Upgrade pack for the UNSC. This is from the April release from Spartan Games for Halo Fleet Battles naturally. So, quite a small pack. We'll just dig through the contents. We've got a couple of advertisements for Spartan Games in general by the looks of it. I didn't expect to see these in here for their other products. Yep. In fact, I've got two. One for me and one for a friend, I guess. So, pop them to one side. I'm guessing those were snuck in there by one of the Spartan Ls at the packing factory. So we've got our usual formation bases. Only 4. So if you're running low on bases and you're planning on running a lot of the Halberd formations, you may have a little bit of trouble. It would be nice if Spartan released these as a separate buy on their website. We've got our small bag of, I'm presuming, Halberd Destroyers. Let's open these up and gently shake them out and shake it all about. So, nice clean 4-tour sprue. So there's our little halberds. So we've got, you know, for the size of them, they're pretty nicely detailed actually. I quite like them. Now for size comparison, they seem to be about the length of a Paris class frigate, though a bit less bulky. You know, the engines are much more sleek and integrated. There isn't the little bit here, but looking at it, they're about the same size. And just try and get a nice close-up shot. They're quite nicely detailed on the top. The bottom's quite simple, but honestly in this game, how often you're going to be looking at the bottom of the model? There we go, get that to focus in nicely. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with these actually. So models are very nice. Let's have a look at the rules, because ultimately that's what gets them on the tabletop. So, our usual pack of goodies. We've got tokens, which mercifully only seems to be one sheet now. So I'm guessing because it's a small upgrade pack, actually makes sense. You wouldn't have any wings with this, so you won't get any wings token pack. We've got a rules sheet, and we have 2 sheets full of formation bases, which we'll get into after we look at the rules. So, rules card is double-sided. We'll start with the basic halberd formation. Now, it is the axe formation. You will notice it's quite similar to the shield wall, or shield formation I should say. So I'll pop that side by side so we can do a comparison. So, the axe formation of halberds costs 10 points more, and from that price you get 1 extra titanium armor, a boarding craft, 2 extra Mac dice, but 1 less missile dice and 1 lower security detail. Now for 10 points more, that's quite good value. I can definitely see, because I personally run a lot of Marathon plus 2 shield formations, so I can definitely see the axe formation being popular as a replacement to that. Now the axe formation does actually come in quite close to the arrowhead formation. If you notice, it costs as much as 2 arrowhead formations. So let me just get my card ready. So if we compare it to that, let's see there. Now it costs the same as 2 arrowhead formations, and if we were to compare them, because at the same build rating value and the same Mac value, because if you look, we get Mac 2 with 8 dice, and here we get Mac 1 with 4 dice, but if you had 2 of those, it would be Mac 2 with 8 dice. So one of these bases has the same firepower as 2 arrowhead formations, costs the same amount of points, and is the same build rating. However, they do have a better damage track, point defense, and titanium armor. They also have the same security detail, but this guy can bring boarding craft, which is interesting actually, because Quite a cheap formation, Marathon plus 2 axe formation, 195 points, and you could have 4 boarding craft on that. With Stanforth, that can be pretty scary. That's what, 8 dice normally, plus 2 per boarding craft for Stanforth, that's 16 dice. That is very scary actually. I think UNSC boarding list just got a little buff. I can imagine all the Covenant players who've lost big ships to critical core breaches aren't happy about that, but oh well. So if you're a fan of these guys, which I personally am, I like lots of Mac dice for cheap points. The main question is, do you value boarding craft? That's the main advantage the Halberds have, because if you took 2 arrowheads, you'd get an extra missile dice, which can sometimes be the thing that makes a difference. The other thing is, if you have 2 arrowheads, you have the advantage of being 2 separate targets. If you have the halberd, you have the advantage of being 1 tougher target. And it really depends, I suppose, on what sort of list you're facing. If you're facing a list that's really aiming to put lots of dice on single targets, like UNSC tend to, the arrowheads are probably going to be a bit more survivable, simply because there's 2 of them. But overall, I think the arrowhead comparison shows that these are actually quite a balanced addition, I feel. They're tougher, but I would probably still say the arrowheads are going to be more survivable because there's twice as many of them. They both have the equivalent Mac dice at the equivalent build rating for the equivalent points. Although the halberds have less missiles, they compensate by having a boarded craft. So I definitely think both are going to have a place in the list, and it really depends what you want to go for. That little bit extra firepower of the arrowheads, or that little bit of boarding ability with the halberds, plus just generally being a tougher single target. So that's enough about the halberds themselves. Let's see what they do when you glue them onto an existing ship. So you can see here we get the Escort and Defended variants. We'll start with the Epoch. Now, this makes the Epoch quite scary. Bear in mind, looking at these stats, at 220 points, it costs as much as a supported ORS. But you get a pretty nippy ship for a large ship, 6 inches movement, plus 1 for hard burn. Point defense of 5 and titanium armor of 6. Bear in mind, this is defended, meaning it has 2 halberd escorts. Now it's build rating 5, so you can only take 1 ship as escort with it. But still, that's pretty scary. It's got 6 hangars, 3 boarding craft, 5 security detail. So it can dish out boarding and it can take boarding pretty well. It's got solid hangars, as we know the Epoch 4. That damage track of 1085 is strong with 6 titanium armor dice. Add on Stanforth for the brace ability, or use Lord Hood to repair it, and that's going to be a real pain in the neck for your enemy. That might actually be my new favorite flagship, because 15 dice. Now bear in mind, before you say, oh my god, that's ridiculous, 15 dice at Mach 2, but it is a light Mach, which means it's got a 20-inch max range and it's on a slow ship. So though this is the closest the Epoch comes to being a battleship, it's still short-ranged. It's not the best firepower you can really get for this, and it is still a carrier. If you want a good all-rounder flagship, I'd say this is probably a very good bet. And the nice thing is, it comes in your starter box. You've most likely got an Epoch if you've got the starter box, fleet box, or the large box. So, well, there you go. The halberds slot in nicely with that. Now we'll look at the Orions, if you've got one of those. So we get we'll start with the Escort variant, which, let me just see if I can get the standard Orion and we'll compare stats. There we go. So, stats time. Standard on the left, on the right. So, for 15 points and 1 of your build ratings, you get plus 4 Mac dice. That's pretty nice. And only plus 1 missile dice. So, you're not going to get the nice, well-rounded boost to missile dice and Mac that you would with the whatchamacallits, the Paris class frigates. You also get an extra boarding craft, bringing you up to 5 boarding craft. And your first damage track gets higher, your titanium armor gets higher. So yeah, the the escorted Orion becomes quite a tough little beast. It's probably about equivalent to a CCS in terms of durability at this point. But with 5 boarding craft and 10 Mac dice, a Mac rating of 3. So you've got a short range super Mac there. Remember, it's only 32 inches, so it's not actually a super Mac, but so yeah. Escort version for 15 points on one of your build ratings is a very good upgrade by the looks of it. Nice firepower, makes up for the Orion's general lack of firepower quite nicely there, while also giving it a notable boost in durability and boarding. I'd say this variant would make quite a good and relatively cheap Spartan delivery service. Heck, you could probably throw on either some arrowheads or an axe formation because of the build rating of 2, and you know, charge that up the field. Let's get some really tasty Mac dice as well. Now the defended variant is the one which has 2 little halberd buddies. That gets +2 Mac dice and +1 missile dice, and that's not bad, but the main advantage is it doesn't increase the build rating. If you look there, 4 and 4. So you can get a little extra firepower out of your capital ships without having to sacrifice a slot for one of your escorts. So while that one is a pretty good escort for 2 arrowheads or axe, this guy's a very good escort for 2 arrowheads or an axe formation. Heck, even the trident, just to get more rounded Magpul. Your titanium armor goes up yet again to 6 with a damage track of 865. That's pretty sturdy. 6 titanium armor dice, that's a bit silly. That is almost too silly. But 160 points is getting quite expensive, and you can crack it. You know, unless your opponent rolls ridiculously well, you will eventually crack open that. And as we all know, UNSC ships without the titanium armor are just lumps of butter waiting to be melted by a hot knife. So as far as these units go, I'd say this is definitely a really nice upgrade to the Orion. It makes a boarding oriented ship even better at boarding. It makes it more durable. It makes the Mac much better. That's now a pretty solid amount of dice at long range. You know, 32-inch range at Mac rating 3 with 12 dice. I can definitely see myself running these. That's definitely a raw firepower upgrade. It does lose the missile rain of death ability that you had with the Orion before. It's not quite as good as what you'd get for the Paris class frigates, but overall I'm quite pleased with it. I'm sure my opponents won't be, but then I always roll terribly on my dice, so that's okay. And overleaf, we have the Mac station, which we'll get into in a little while in the Mac video. It looks like that's specifically for, we'll probably be getting this exact card in the Mac box. So our escorted Valiant with 1 halberd buddy, +1 to build rating. Let's see if I can dig out. I really should have dug them up beforehand. Where is the Valiant card? There we are. Valiant Super Heavy Cruiser. So, here's our, I'll put it side by side. So, our Valiant gains +1 first damage track, +1 titanium armor, +3 Mac dice, and +1 Mac rating. So he finally gets his Super Mac. Yay! Plus he gets a tasty extra missile dice, which is not bad. His security detail goes up. He gets an extra boarding craft. Other than that, though, it's pretty standard. It's not bad. It does solve part of the Valiant's problem by making it a bit more, you know, relevant. And we get the defended variant, which continues the trend with another +1 missile, +2 Mac, +1 security detail. Actually, that's quite interesting. The others didn't really get any significant increased security detail. An extra titanium armor and an extra point on the last damage track. So yeah, that is that is more of a big, heavy, shooty battleship. At build rating 4 and 160 points, it's interesting actually. It's let me just check that a sec. Is that 160 points? That is 160 points. 115, 135, so that's plus 20 for that, and then plus 25 for that. Let me just check the, I didn't miss that. Okay, so the Orion, let me just get the Orion card up. I put it down like a numpty, and there we are. So the Orion vanilla is 120. Oh, so the Escort version costs plus 25, and then the defended version costs plus 15. I wonder how Spartan work out these costs. Oh, so it works out about the same, more or less. Anyway, another little eccentricity with the points and such in this game. I think the defended Valiant is definitely the ship we wanted to begin with. High build rating, tough ship, equivalent in cost, firepower, and arguably durability to a CCS. It was the big, heavy, expensive, super heavy cruiser we really wanted. So I think you now kind of have that with Defended Valiant. Now I know through much amicable discussion on the forums, the Facebook group and such, that people are divided on whether using halberds to make the otherwise not so great Valiant great is the best approach for Spartan to take. We'll diplomatically say that. Overall, if you are getting the halberds anyway and you have a Valiant, now it's better. I would say it's definitely worth fielding. I'm looking forward to trying mine out. I mean, 15 dice, long range, Mac rating 3. It's I think that's about equivalent to the or maybe slightly lower than the paired marathon. And you have the ability to attach frigates or destroyers to this. So yeah, overall, quite pleased. Elephant in the room, no marathons, none. One would suggest that might be because if the marathon is included on there, it would overshadow the Valiant again, but either way, we have the formation bases. So we've got 2 of them. Now in this pack you get 2 defended Orions, 2 escorted, 2 defended Orions, 2 escorted Valiants, 2 defended Valiants, 1, 2, and 3 axe formations, 1 defended Epoch, and 2 escorted Orions. So for the Valiants and Orions, you get 2 each of escorted and defended, 1 defended Epoch, 3 axe formations for just fielding them. So if you want to field these just as axe formations, that's pretty much the pack, because each one would run for 4 of these. But overall, I'd say for £20 or your regional equivalent, it's quite good value, especially if you shop around, find somewhere online that maybe does a discount. I definitely recommend getting these, as especially from a starter box, they seem to be a good upgrade. You get the defended Epoch, you get the axe formations. It would have been nice to get marathons, I would say that, but well, that's kind of a sore spot that we won't really go into in this video. Spartan have today announced that they are going to be releasing very soon a blog post concerning the Valiant Super Heavy Cruiser. In fact, by the time this video goes out, it might have already been sent out. So we'll wait and see on that. And if you would like to click on these boxes that will appear in a moment, they will take you to the next videos.